Hey everybody, it's Nick from Android Headlines, and today we're here for a video shootout comparison between the Sony Xperia X Performance, the OnePlus 3, the Samsung Galaxy S7, and the Xiaomi Mi 5. So for our first setup here, we're going to be testing the stabilization on each of these phones. Here I'm on my bike on an old farm road, turned into trail by the lake nearby, which as you can see is a very bumpy and rocky experience, so let's jump right in. Taking a look at the Mi 5, we can see that this super crisp 4K video looks really great. It might have a slightly warm hue here and there though, as it picks up the trail, which actually is a little more white than yellow here, and it gets those colors slightly wrong. It's not too bad on the detail, but it is quite a bit shaky, and it looks like that new OIS module in the Mi 5 doesn't exactly do a fantastic job on a surface this bumpy. Moving on to the OnePlus 3, we see that the colors are a little bit more accurate. You don't have that little bit of a warm hue here and there on the trail, and the crispness of the 4K video is about the same, but the stabilization is also about the same as the Mi 5. It's pretty darn shaky, and it doesn't do a great job of keeping that video stable throughout this rocky experience. If you're looking for great action cams, it looks like the Galaxy S7 might be one of the best 4K action cams around. This video is considerably smoother than the other two. It's a tad bit jittery still, but that's pretty tough to get around given the surface that we're riding on. You're also looking at some great color accuracy and crispness of that 4K video as well. Finally, we're going to take a look at the Xperia X Performance, which as you might note is a 1080p only recording. There is no 4K, so it's nowhere near as crisp as that other ones, but holy crap, that stabilization. This video looks like I'm riding on ice or something. It is ridiculously smooth. Sony's algorithm is excellent here, and I almost wonder if this is why they didn't have 4K video recording on the Xperia X Performance. This is a definite win for the Xperia in terms of steadiness, but as far as 4K video goes, you're going to have to go with the S7 if you want to have pretty stable but that really crisp 4K video. Moving on to a different kind of test, this one's going to test the dynamic range of the sensor. This is going to be a combination of both the sensor's technology itself and how well the software handles varying lighting conditions, particularly when it comes to overly bright and overly dark areas. As you can see from the Mi 5, the colors are very vibrant, almost a little bit too vibrant. It looks like Xiaomi turned up the saturation on this one quite a bit. It's also maybe just a tad overexposed, although the OIS does a good job of stabilizing while walking. So you're going to get a pretty good smooth picture here while walking, but looking at things like the flowers and some of the other things, you're going to lose a little bit of that detail due to the fact that it's slightly overexposed. And of course, those colors are definitely not accurate. It is not that vibrant, although I guess in this particular scene, it does kind of make it a little more attractive, given that most of these things are flowers and leaves. Moving on to the OnePlus 3, these colors are way more realistic. You'll probably notice that right off the bat moving from the Mi 5's video. The exposure level is essentially perfect. There's quite a bit more shadow detail here, particularly as we move towards the end of the section here. Although the stabilization isn't quite as good as what the Mi 5 had, it seems like. It's just maybe a little hair underneath that, but not something extreme. It's pretty good though, so as far as 4K video is concerned, this is a pretty decent player. And it does get that exposure way better. You can see a lot more detail in the flower. You can see the petals and some of the differences in between the middle of the flowers and that sort of thing. So this is definitely a way better experience than the Mi 5, it looks like. Moving on to the Galaxy S7, this one is way underexposed in the beginning. It definitely picks up that sunlight and runs with it, blacking out almost the entirety of the trees, but instead picking up the blue in the sky. So I guess this one's going to depend on preference, although that's not exactly what we were going for in the video. Color balance is a little off throughout the video too. Sometimes it's a little too warm like it is in the beginning here near the shed, and then sometimes it's a little too cool as we move into some of the more green hues, and it turns to more of a blue overall hue of the video. Stabilization is definitely the best of the 4K cameras though, and there's more shadow detail than the Mi 5, but it doesn't seem to be quite as good as the OnePlus 3 when it comes to pulling out the detail in those shadows and still getting that balance correct overall. Onto the Xperia X Performance. Stabilization is good, but it doesn't seem to be quite as massive of a difference as that last test. It's definitely overexposed quite a bit though, and the colors are way too muted, probably because of how overexposed it is. And of course, since this is not 4K video, it's only 1080p, you're not looking at anywhere near as sharp of an image. Particularly at the end here, the scene is terribly washed out, and you lose tons and tons of detail, so this one is the surefire loser in this test. For the next test, we took a little walk through a quaint part of town with only a few sources to light the way. This one's going to test not only how much light a sensor can pull in, but also the amount of detail that it can deal with in this difficult situation. Starting off with the OnePlus 3, you'll see that the stabilization is alright. As I'm walking here, it tends to jilt quite a bit. The overall image quality is nothing to write home about, but it isn't horrible either. Balance is generally good between exposure and color accuracy, and the details are good, but it doesn't quite look like 4K video. You can see the ISO was definitely pushed quite a bit higher here to grab those extra details, and the smaller pixels on that 16 megapixel sensor are definitely showing their limitations. Unfortunately for the Xperia X Performance, this one actually overheated while trying to record and stopped a few seconds in. We actually had this issue more with the Xperia X than with the Performance, but the fact that this happened at all obviously makes it an immediate loss. And if this happens to you in a real life situation, you're going to look back later and realize you forgot the video, so we decided just to leave it in for the test. For the Galaxy S7, the stabilization is definitely better than the OnePlus 3. You can see a little bit less jilting here, a little bit less jittering. The picture is definitely clearer. The exposure is absolutely perfect and the details are downright amazing. Samsung's low light technology is doing a really good job here. This video looks absolutely phenomenal. Even the colors are dead on accurate, which is impressive given the low level of light in this shot. Lastly, we're going to take a look at the Xiaomi Mi 5. This one's going to be super underexposed. You can obviously tell that the sensor is not built for this sort of light level, and the software does nothing to help it either. The sensor obviously has a very hard time with this level of light due to the small size of the actual pixels. And although you really can't see that much in the scene, the colors are actually pretty good where it can pick up enough light to see everything. But since it's so dark, this one is definitely going to lose for the phones that actually got a video. Focusing is obviously of paramount importance to actually catching the right things on camera at the right time. We've seen lots of focus, pardon the pun, on the actual methods of how this works this year, but which way works the best? Starting with the Mi 5, the intro here was actually the first Mi 5 take I did, where the camera actually wouldn't focus on my hand at all. I did a second take after checking the settings were all correct, which they were, and it found my hand only half the time even after that, but at least when it did the transition from background to foreground, that focus was smooth. The OnePlus 3 eschews the laser autofocus of the previous generation OnePlus device, and instead goes with a phase detection autofocus with pretty great results. Focusing is fast and accurate, about half a second or less from the time of me putting my hand in front of the camera and back, and it does a great job of actually moving between the focus points smoothly. The Xperia X Performance is utilizing Sony's purportedly quick autofocus system from the last generation of Sony phones, but in general it takes about double the time of the OnePlus 3 and really isn't that fast. Still, at least it gets it right every time, unlike the Mi 5 did. Although that transition between focus points is a little bit jittery. One of the biggest strengths of the new camera on the Galaxy S7 is definitely focus times, and it's incredibly obvious in this segment. The Galaxy S7 is absolutely lightning fast thanks to 100% of the pixels being used to focus, and there's literally no lag time between my hand being on or off the screen and the camera focusing on the right subject. This is a massive win for the Galaxy S7 here, hands down. Last but not least, we'll take a look at underwater photography and, well, there's not really a contest with this one. The Xperia X Performance is the only phone with a dedicated shutter button and a way to turn off the display's touch-sensitive nature, meaning you simply can't do this with any other phone in the group, much less most on the market. So this is a pretty big win for the Xperia X, and I imagine if it's underwater, it probably won't overheat. We hope you enjoyed that quick look at the camera differences between these phones. There's some major price difference between all these phones too, and it does show that price really doesn't mean a whole lot in the market. The Galaxy S7 was definitely the overall winner here, but it doesn't take the cake in every test, and there are some special things that some phones can do over the others. So we hope you'll check out our other camera comparisons, our other reviews, and everything else here on the site. Subscribe to us if you enjoyed this video and are looking for more content. Be sure to check us out on your favorite social network, and of course check out AndroidHeadlines.com for 24/7 news coverage. Thanks for watching, and until next time.